Good afternoon. Welcome to the fifth and last episode of Season 3 of the web show Perspectives Live, a Colleges and Institutes Canada initiative where we talk about and share different perspectives on those that matter to you. I'm today Normand Latour. I'm usually hosting en direct in French. I was doing it this morning, and unfortunately, my colleague and your regular host, Manjula Sevaraya, couldn't be with us today, so I was asked to replace her, and obviously, I said yes. Today's episode will look at how can colleges and institutes use AI, including the likes of ChatGPT, to their advantage, and of course, all to beginners. It's a very, very hot topic right now. First, I wish to acknowledge that this episode of Perspectives Live is being produced and broadcast from the traditional and unceded of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I would also like to recognize the ongoing contribution of our corporate partners. You're going to see them on the screen, BGIS, TD Insurance, and Scotiabank, who support our activities, including bringing new perspectives live in both English and French. We are now by ICANN's CEO, Denise Amiot. Denise, hi, how are you?
Well, now that spring is here.
Finally, but this morning it was only 1 degree here, so our producers tell me that this is the fourth episode of Perspectives Live for CICAN. Would you ever thought hosting a show on artificial intelligence when we started out in 2020, 3 years ago?
Maybe not. What we knew, though, was that it was great to have a platform where we could talk about important topic of the day. And of course, now today we will be talking about AI and specifically ChatGPT because it's prevalent everywhere, including college and institute in the institute system. And we felt we could not this season without discussing it. And most of us don't give it even a second thought. But artificial intelligence impacts our lives every day. AI and big data, in fact, allow businesses, organizations, governments to analyze huge data sets to identify patterns, trends, and other information that can, in fact, help better decisions. And it's growing at an imperceptible rate right now. And it's even faster since the pandemic because it's across industries, including within the post-secondary system.
And it's not all about robots and self-driving cars, right?
No, not yet. Mind you, we talk about robots and we teach about robots and we do applied research on robots. But there are a multitude of applications for AI, and there's a huge potential for growth through levels with innovative business solutions of all kinds. And if you look across Canada right now, our colleges and institutes, in fact, offer more than 50 programs in AI, big data, data analytics, machine learning, and they also offer a range of stackable micro credentials, diplomas, certificates, and even specialized postgrad degrees. And these programs ensure that new opportunities to upgrade or rescale are available to all learners, whether they are at school or if they are at work or looking for a job. And that means that businesses can hire qualified workers to meet the various sector demands.
So we are already future-proofing the labor force for the inevitable.
And but you know what, Norma? Skills are only one part of the AI landscape. There's a huge potentials for growth through innovative business solutions with AI. And as you know, the SDG 9, which is all about industry, innovation, and infrastructure, that SDG challenges us to do more to upgrade and retrofit industries to make more sustainable and foster innovation. And the good news is that colleges and institutes, they do help business and industry partners tap into the potential of new technologies through applied research and with our specialized centers of excellence across country.
So it sounds as though we can agree that AI stay, that it is transforming our life. The question is now, how do we welcome and adapt to this new technology an ethical and responsible way, as is the title of our show suggests, friend or foe?
You're right, Normand. And the way people work will look drastically different in 10 years from now. There will also be new jobs. There will be transformations of many of our work. And I look forward to hearing our guests today because I'm sure they will bring new insights to all of us.
I agree. We have an exciting topic to discuss with our guest, and once again, a great opportunity to share and approach this very hot topic with different perspectives that will certainly raise questions and nourish our reflection on the subject. Thank you, Denise. You will be back in a little while, 25 minutes, with Paul Dangerfield. Paul is President and Vice Chancellor of Capilano University. See you soon. For now, I'm happy to welcome our guest today, Elisa. Elisa is Executive Director, Pan-American AI at CFAR. CFAR is the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research. Elisa, hi, nice to meet you. Welcome. We also have Antoine Lefebvre-Brossard. Antoine is an applied machine learning scientist with artificial intelligence, of course. He's working with Mila. You never met Elisa, Antoine, but you know who she is. Mila is the Institut québécois d'intelligence artificielle, the Quebec Institute for Artificial Intelligence. Hi, Antoine, nice to see you.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
And Amanda Manick is also with us this afternoon. She's Associate Dean at Durham's College in Oshawa. Amanda, you know a lot about artificial intelligence. You're working in that sector since many years now.
Yes, thank you very much. It's nice to see everybody.
I want to show you a picture first. It was taken Monday morning in Montreal. There was an important summit where the Ministre de l'Éducation supérieure, the Minister of Education, Superior Education, Pascal Derry, was there. What you're going to see is the picture of her when she showed up on stage. Actually, it was a screen, and everybody thought, oh, well, it's cool, the minister is here. But actually, it was not the minister. It was really just a machine that had created that image of her. And what she was saying was not her, actually. And then she showed up in person. That's her, created by a machine. And then she came on stage and said, hey, you know what? This was created by a very non-sophisticated computer. It was easy and actually, Antoine, you were there. How was it?
Yeah, I was in the room, and not only was it her picture, but it started talking to us. And it felt a bit eerie, and you kind of ask yourself, am I not used to seeing her? Is she always that robotic? And eventually you realize that it's generated by AI, but it is surprising, and for a short time, it is believable.
And there was 1,000 specialists in the room, right?
I think it was 1,000 seeing from virtually, but we were about 200, 300 in the room. Yes.
Okay. So AI creates a very exciting time in teaching, but tell us, is there reason to be worried? I guess that the answer to that question, Elisa, is yes and no. So I'm going to ask you why yes and why no.
Sure, absolutely. And I think we are at really a pivotal time in the development of this technology, and particularly since the launch of ChatGPT. in November, late November of last year, where we've just seen an explosion in the interest of this technology by the public and making it, for the first time, really accessible for anybody to get their hands on and to play with and to try out. But the kind of technology that underlies programs like ChatGPT and other large models like that is called large language models. And, they have the opportunity to really use humongous amounts of computing power and massive amounts of data. Basically, pretty much everything we as a human race that's been shared on the internet is accessible to these large models. And so they have, access to so much information that they can actually generate, answers to questions that we ask ourselves, answers to questions that students might pose to them. But they also have the possibility of making up new information, right? And being creative. And that's part of the risk of these kinds of models come in. And it's like the meeting with the minister, where at first it was hard to determine whether or not that was a real live human being that was speaking or if it was machine generated. And so that is the risk of people being presented with information that's not true or not authentic, misinformation in some cases, and not being able to tell the difference and not being able to think critically and understand what's real and how people might be trying to manipulate them in other ways. So I do think that misinformation is one of the key risks of this technology. And so that's where critical thinking skills are so essential, and where I see such a role for the higher education sector and the colleges and institutes in particular in continuing to develop critical thinking, critical analysis skills, and talking about these technologies in the classroom, and helping students to develop the skills and expertise to be able to understand what that risk is, how to identify where AI might be being used, and how to audit and consider the information that they're being presented and determine how much they should believe it.
Antoine, same question. Are you worried? Yes, why? And no, why?
Well, I'll start with the positive side since I'm working with that. So obviously, I find it pretty cool, and I'm excited to see what people are doing with it. And there's a lot of opportunities to just give different perspectives on students, give them tools so that they can learn in their own ways. And by themselves, they can have an AI tutor with whom they can interact, they can discuss new ideas. But I agree with Elisa about the risk for disinformation, especially now. We have so much information on the web that we only spend a few seconds reading information, assessing if it's true or not, if it's credible or not. And the more these AI systems are part of our everyday life, the easier it is to be deceived, because it is realistic and we tend to learn less and less. And so I think we should be worried. We should be kind of going back to what we're learning in school and discussing what's important for us, and going deeper and figuring out that learning to live in uncertainty and ambiguity, learning to live in really with uncertain information, and kind of having the reflex to wanting to know more about something that's surprising or even.
Amanda, you are working with those tools already. Are you worried? What are you seeing? Good, yes. Why? And no, why?
Yeah. At first, there was a lot of trepidation around it coming into the post-secondary sector. I affectionately refer to it as the Chicken Little syndrome, where a lot of our educators were feeling like the sky was falling and that education was never going to be the same again. And then once we started playing with the tools and seeing what the opportunities were for bringing them into the classroom, not only for practice and students completing their assignments, but also with the ability to change up and rethink how we do assessments. And that is a really key piece of things as we move forward with leveraging artificial intelligence as part of our regular everyday activities that have now become very routine parts of our educational process in post-secondary education. And going back to what you were saying, Elisa, I absolutely agree. We spend a lot of time in education, both in the secondary and post-secondary system in supporting and educating our students in critical consumers of knowledge and really bolstering that digital literacy piece of things. And so now we need to extend that digital literacy piece to also include artificial intelligence and understanding that exactly what you said. It has the ability to make up information or even make up references. And so thinking about really how we use artificial intelligence in the classroom in a way that students understand its benefits, but also understand its challenges. The other area that is a concern as well is that we actually don't 100% know yet, specifically with the tools that we're using in post-secondary, what level of data gathering or data mining is happening with our students and or anybody who's using it, to be honest. And so security of that data is of considerable concern for us. During an exercise with a ChatGPT conference last week, actually asked the bot what data it collects and what happens to it. And funny enough, it referred us back to our internet service provider. So not knowing where that information is going or what is actually being stored is definitely of concern for the industry. I guess the final that is the concerning part, there's a lot of really exciting and amazing things that we can do with this, but the other piece of it is around academic integrity and really trying to preserve the rigor and the integrity of the credentials that students are coming in to earn, understanding that students are actually truthfully of their own volition earning those credentials. And again, that comes back to how we actually approach teaching and assessment in the classroom.
So teaching will change, of course, to adapt to this new environment. Is it be an easy task, Elisa?
I think it's a great opportunity for educators to really get creative and to actually, incorporate different disciplines and different, fields of study into their course. So for instance, if you're in a course that's teaching, about the technical side of AI, how important is it now to also bring in a conversation around the ethical concerns about AI, to bring about a conversation on the societal implications of AI and start to use, insights from law, from ethics, from philosophy, even with your students in the classroom. So I think that's a great opportunity for educators and students. I think that, ChatGPT, other generative models have opportunity again to help us to learn how to think critically, to use those tools to help to create new teaching materials, and then to evaluate the outcomes, the output of those generative models. For instance, if you think about of images that an image producing software like Dolly, which is the image equivalent to ChatGPT, it produces. I've used it to teach lessons around the kinds of bias, for instance, that can be embedded within artificial intelligence. If you ask Dolly to create an image of Indigenous students working in Canada, it gives you a very particular image in response to that, even if you look at a few different examples. I've been able to use that as a teaching tool with students to assess and evaluate and critique both the risks and the challenges that are associated with this technology.
But it will be more demanding on teachers, Antoine. It will be very demanding.
On certain things, yes, especially evaluations, that those have to be completely rethink. Some are proposing going back to pen and paper, but that's probably not a sustainable solution in the long term. Using software to kind of detect cheating is already doomed from the start. It's a race, and it's already been lost. Even OpenAI, it's their own ChatGPT tool, and their system, I think, is 26% of the time it can predict correctly that something is generated by ChatGPT. And of that, there's an extra 9% where it's false positives. So the whole assessment part of it has to be rethinked. But other parts of teaching, there's much more opportunities than there are kind of dangers. Thinking about new activities to do. That's a very good use for ChatGPT. Giving a voice to a more diverse range of our students is also an opportunity. Anyone can write a text, and then a teacher could use ChatGPT to rise text and propose a kind of different viewpoints on the same question. You can adapt your text to each student's main interests. It gives tools to teachers to kind of reach many more different types of people, to elevate minority viewpoints in a much easier way, and even for the teacher to kind of reflect on their own viewpoints through this tool, if used in the right way, because it's kind of an amalgamation of the whole internet. One like specific point comes out most obviously, because it's not a very good representation of the whole of humanity, even if we do say it's on the internet.
But if I'm, I don't know, a teacher, I'm teaching history. I don't know much about artificial intelligence. Am I going to have access to tools that are going to help me to become a better teacher?
It's a very good question. One of the things that we've noted is just sort of a grasp on one tool. We have 4 more that launch the very next day. And so there's a lot of people that are trying to keep with what's going on in terms of learning resource development and use both inside and outside of the classroom. One of the things I always tell faculty or other educators is to pick something simple. Pick one piece of artificial intelligence that you feel that you can connect with, whether it's ChatGPT or DALL-E, for example, where we're looking at image generation, or even some of our other titers, some of the new systems that are coming out that will really help, students and educators put their thoughts to paper in ways that are perhaps more succinct than what they would be able to do on their own. And so pick one of those things and just try it. There's just as much value in a crash and burn as there is in a resounding success. And so I really try to encourage educators to take risk. And when our students are presented with the model of an educator saying, okay, hey, I've never before, let's give it a go and see what happens and tell me what you think about it. Our students are actually in a place where they're being guided into a space where they feel comfortable with academic risks and trying things that they may not know about before. And so with faculty, it's going to definitely some time for educators to find their comfortable space. But in order to do that, we have to step out of that comfort zone. We've got to step outside of that box and see what is available for us out there. There are institutions, Canada, including ours, that have mounted task forces that are looking at the use of different types of artificial intelligence tools from the perspective of both students and faculty, and looking at the challenges that they might face, the opportunities that they present to enhance both teaching and learning, and see what we can bring into our educational system to really not only help students in their education now, but to help them develop those skills around AI that they're going to take with them into the workforce or into their careers as they move outside of education. The numbers are quite profound in regards to the number of jobs that are going to potentially be replaced over the next 10, 20 years by AI. And a lot of the mundane tasks that would normally be completed both by educators and by people in the field are going to be replaced by AI. And that actually has a really cool effect to it. So Tricia Gallant posted an article this morning, and she actually put in a prompt into GPT, and it produced a blog for her. She had the opportunity to go in and make some revisions before she posted it, and she presented the question, did this save me time? Maybe not, but while it was doing it, it saved me some time where I could actually engage in critical thinking rather than thinking about just what I'm writing on a piece of paper. So there's lots of really fantastic opportunities in those areas.
There was this open letter about, well, at the end of March, when the specialist, maybe we should relax, take some time, breathe a little bit and understand what is going on. Was that a good thing, Elisa? Because it was going so fast, right?
It was going really, really fast. And the open letter, I think, had the impact of really drawing attention to the issue, right? So for months before that, ChatGPT was available. People had been trying it. People had been starting to comment and critique and understand some of the limitations and the weaknesses of the technology. But I think the open letter really drew attention to the potential risks associated with the technology and really got people thinking about, what do we do about this technology that is moving so quickly at a period of time where the policymakers are not able to keep up with the advancing of the technology. So I think that was a really important new element into the discussion, not just that we have this amazing technology that does some really cool things amazingly well, falls short in a few places, but also raise that awareness of, in a society, we need to make sure that we have the safeguards and the guardrails around a technology that is this powerful. And we need to make sure that we have legislation, regulations, policy standards that can ensure that the technology is being developed and deployed in a way that is responsible, that's safe, that protects people's human rights, protects privacy. So that was a really welcome addition into the general conversation.
Amanda?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we need to think about more specifically. Policies, exactly you were saying, is very, very important. There's a lot of policies that are already existing that capture use of internet or use of other digital tools, but artificial intelligence brings an entirely different scope to those policies, and understanding that institutions need to take a step back and think, how is this going to be used in the classroom? How might students be engaging with this technology both while they're in school and outside of school? And how do we ensure their safety of the institution and that of our faculty as well? And really considering shaping and adding to and enhancing some of the policies that we already have. For example, the academic integrity policies. Artificial intelligence now brings an entirely different lens to that. Thinking about appropriate use of technology inside of the classroom, again, an entirely different lens to that. And thinking we do need to take a step back. We've been in a position where it's been thrust upon us so very quickly, and a lot of the institutions are really scrambling to try and keep up. And that policy making piece is one of the things that is not keeping up with what's happening. And there's no way to at this point, because of the number of tools that are coming forward on a very regular basis. It's exponential at this point. And so I don't know actually if we have the space or the capacity to be able to step back and pause and take a look at what's there in order to be able to move forward effectively and efficiently. I feel like taking that pause might just put us in a situation where we're not able to respond to what the students are engaging with, because the students are the consumers of this right off. They're the ones who know about these long before they come forward into the classroom or into institutions. And so taking that pause might actually put us at a disadvantage from a teaching and learning academic integrity perspective.
Yeah. Antoine, I would like to hear you about that.
Yeah, so that letter obviously was signed by Yoshua Bengio, our director at Mila. He was one of the main names behind it. So we did talk a lot about, and I don't think anyone thought that we would actually put it on pause, but it did, as Elisa said, create more awareness. And especially for years now, AI researchers, tech companies have been working on this a bit by themselves in a silo. And this makes it so we can include much more people from ethics, from the legal standpoint, from policy, in discussions about AI. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, testified in front of Congress in the US yesterday. And he was basically agreeing with everything that's been said here, that there should be more regulation, there should be more policy. And this is completely different from the rest of what has been done for the internet. And a different way of thinking about it, different laws should be put in place. So I think everyone in the AI community, or most people, are happy that it's now in the open so that we can have a more diverse viewpoint on how we should actually be using this in society so that it helps every single person. And is it just like a cool thing that we're all building by ourselves?
I'd love to jump in on that a little bit, Normand, if I can,
sure.
because the key policy opportunities for both government policymakers and for educators is to really focus on public engagement and AI literacy. And that's something that we've been investing a lot in at CFAR over the last 6 months or so, is thinking about how do we provide opportunities for learning, for skills and expertise around AI to all Canadians. And so I am really pleased to say just recently we've launched a free online course for all Canadians in French and in English. It's called Destination AI, ou Objectif IA en français. And it takes about 6 hours to do the course. It includes a lot of great curriculum around what is AI, what it's capable of, what it's not capable of. It takes learners behind the scenes a little bit to understand the even the scientific foundations of the technology, and also where the great opportunities of AI lie in the future. These areas of application, like in healthcare, like in combating climate change and developing sustainable energy tools, right? So not just the risks, but also those opportunities where AI has a tremendous potential to give a positive impact for society. So I really recommend that people take a course and think about taking it, whether you're an educator or a student who's interested in this field. If you're a retiree, if you're a high school student, it's really a course that's accessible to everyone. You get a certificate at the end that you can put in page to say that you have taken an effort to educate yourself, to learn a little bit more about the basics of AI. And it's sort of knowledge that everybody needs in our society. AI is becoming so ubiquitous.
Okay, listen, maybe the timing is very good to ask Paul Danger to join us right now. Paul is working with the Capilano University. He's a vice chancellor, president. Denise Amiot will join us as well. I would like to hear what you're thinking about when you're Paul.
Well, on the big picture, I mean, I think our colleagues here have a really difficult job of summarizing it. I guess what is on my mind these days is, Denise, right in the beginning said, 10 years from now, things are going to look drastically different. I think what we're hearing is that next year things are going to be drastically different. Not that I'm trying to counter what you've been saying, Denise, but I really do think they are. And then when I think about it at sort of the highest level, I also think about, if you think about it from a generational point of view, recall that, we talk about millennials, we talk about digital natives, or those folks who've gone through and never known a world in which there weren't computers. Well, I think down the road, obviously, there's going to be a generation that will never know a time in which we have artificial intelligence. So how do we get from where we are now to that place in the future where we're thinking about things like the ethical concerns, like the critical thinking that's underway? And I think, again, our colleagues on the panel have done a wonderful job of it. But it wasn't very long ago that we didn't have critical thinking and ethical thinking in some of the programs that we had at universities. I take business, for example. We didn't have ethics in the schools of business. Now we're beginning to introduce it. So it's not like we don't have the mechanism in place to start evolving for this. I think, though, as Amanda said in spades, the problem that we have is every single week, every single day, it's changing. And so how do we actually keep up with it? And I think those are the interesting, right? The transition to this is very, very bumpy, I think. And I would also just acknowledge that I think what's really important is that we're having this conversation. The same way that it took a long time for us to have a conversation about climate action and climate change, talk about truth and reconciliation, talk about SDGs. It took us a long time to make that a public conversation. And we needed jolts to get us going. Well, ChatGPT just jolted us into having a really important conversation around AI.
Yeah. But how widely used is AI or ChatGPT in your university?
Well, at our university, I mean, I think we're, it'd be interesting. I'm sure somebody's started the research on it right now, trying to figure it out. But I actually had a conversation last week with two of our who are wrapping up this semester, and one of them in humanities said it was the most challenging semester she's ever taught in 29 years because of ChatGPT. And another faculty member in another school said it was the best semester they've ever taught at university in 20 years because of the evolution of ChatGPT and that introducing it. So I think, at least my perspective is, it depends on the subject area. I think what we're seeing in a lot of areas, arts, sciences, probably business, humanities, that time, you're seeing a lot of it. And it might be that as the evolution and sort of the STEM subjects and engineering in particular, we're going to see that evolve over the next little bit. So it's just still at the earlier stages for it. But I would say probably the majority of our students are tapping into it, and the majority of faculty are to keep up.
Denise, what are you hearing from colleagues in
So,
other institutes?
the same as what Paul just mentioned, and there are really two types of faculty, exactly like what was said. Some are afraid and some are embracing it. And for me, it brings me back to Wikipedia years ago. People were laughing about Wikipedia. They were thinking it's not a good resource. But post-secondary institutions were able, and in fact also high school, used Wikipedia to develop critical thinking, to develop analytical thinking, and research skills in students by asking them what was missing, how would they complete what was in Wikipedia. So I believe it's the same thing. I was reading an article yesterday in the Globe and Mail of the CEO of OpenAI, and he was saying, look, right now the legislation is not progressing fast enough. And some people are saying we should stop completely. We should, take a step back. And he said, unfortunately, we cannot do that because if we don't continue, other countries will be, and we will be behind. But the question is, how do you do it with ethics, with thinking about human rights? And I always go back to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, because if we would use this as a framework for whatever we do, if you look at the SDGs and AI, we have all the answers there. It talks about sustainability, it talks about human rights, it talks about ethics, it talks about equity, mental health. So, all those elements that, in fact, are touching AI.
Oh, I would like to hear you on that, Elisa. You're going to have to change your course every 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think not. I think that certainly the technology is going to continue to develop, and there are really interesting new approaches to AI and applications of AI that are on the horizon that are coming in the months and years ahead. Right now, we've got ChatGPT as the shiniest new thing that is gathering all of our attention, but there's so much more to come. And so I think as we approach our understanding of how do we develop policies around the regulation of AI, how do we develop policies in the educational sector about the application of AI, I think the best advice and the best approach is to use principles-based approaches, right? So we can't regulate or develop policies speaking to very specific aspects of the technology, but rather thinking about the general aspects of the technology. And so that's what's been happening in Canada as the government of Canada has been developing ideas and concepts about how to regulate AI. They have taken a very principles-based approach, and so did the EU as well. And so that is sort of a way to future-proof the development of legislation and regulation and policies. And I think we have to at the same time recognize that we have to be really nimble and be able to respond to the technology as it evolves. And I think most importantly, and Sam Altman says this as well, we really have to engage broadly across society on this topic and make sure that people are, have an understanding of what the technology is, what the risks and the opportunities are, and then have a say also in, how we approach our policies, how we approach our legislation and regulations, and so that their perspectives are included in that process going forward.
Okay. I'm going to ask the question to Paul. Who has to take the lead on that? To give us
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think it was Antoine who mentioned, the internet really isn't governed right now, and so who's governing AI as we think about where we want to move forward, and who are the stakeholders? Doing some thinking since we started this conversation, and I think everybody needs to be involved with it. Who needs to actually take the lead? I think I'll tweak my sort of my thoughts on it, and that is that I think governments can play a role of facilitating the conversation. I think educators and folks like those that are on the call here are the ones that actually need to be really involved with it, so that we can ways in which we can establish policies and guidelines that do acknowledge risks that are there, but at the same time, I think really make sure that we don't button this down so tightly that we're not able to actually then move forward on important issues like climate change and the SDGs that Denise is mentioning. So I think governments can play a role from a facilitation point of view, but I think folks like and associations like CICAN and those of us that are here together, I think that's really the leadership. I think we're all going to have to be involved with it right now. So that would be my overall thoughts on it. I think there's a lot of great associations and organizations that are really being very thoughtful about it, and I think let's hear from them.
Amanda?
Yeah, I entirely agree. From sort of the micro lens, Paul, you did a good job of bringing sort of that macro lens and looking with educational institutions. It really has to be a collaborative effort. Looking at things like these and projects that require investigation or that actually encourage investigation of use of artificial intelligence tools, they're not free. There's got to be funding with it, and so we need the support from both the government and the offices of the presidents and all of the institutions. But it's really the voices of the educators and the students that really need to come together and be heard around what's needed, what tools are needed in the classrooms or at the classrooms, what resources are needed to help support use of those tools in an effective, efficient, and meaningful way. And how can we make them relevant? And in order to that, we have to look at all of those different areas, that we were talking about just a few minutes ago. In media, art, and design might be very different than use in business or use in the humanities, but everybody has important contributions that they can bring together, and really how each other are using it, how each other are leveraging it, and how students are using it successfully and learning how to use it in a way that is going to allow them to use it success outside of the educational system. And that collaborative piece is really important. So starting from that macro piece where we're looking at the governments and the policymakers legislators and the regulators, and bringing it down into the different sectors that AI is going to have a really profound impact on, one of which is the secondary system, and even the elementary system. Is really important to make sure that all of those voices are heard and the needs are captured, and that all of the concerns perhaps around things like data privacy, storage of information, mining of data are all really strongly in the application for that particular sector.
Elisa and Antoine, do you see, are you hearing this collaboration coming in?
Yeah, I completely agree that it's basically something that everyone should be working on. Of course, governments and universities, colleges should kind of help facilitate, but everyone should be thinking about this, how it should be used. And the reason why AI has been growing so fast in the last few decades is it rests on the open source community, where every single research, most code, most data across people, and good ideas bubble up. There's collaboration between every single person that's working on this across the world. Even though OpenAI have kind of released closed source systems, the open source community have replicated every single thing, often much better. So I see AI even serving as a tool to kind of help bring these different people together, trying to aggregate everyone's opinions and techniques on how you tried it, and oh, I tried it in this different way, and now we can both collaborate with this other person in the arts and in the STEM. So I see it really in every like a community-based problem across the whole country, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Juan, I think you're right. I think we have in Canada, we're so fortunate to have just this beautiful culture of collaboration and also of responsible AI, right? And so even within the Canadian AI strategy, the partnership between CFAR and our 3 national AI institutes, which are Mila, where Antoine is based, the Vector Institute here in Toronto, and Amy in Edmonton. It's such a strong collaboration and partnership between our organizations and the people and scientists working at our organizations. And then within each of Canada's 3 national AI institutes, they are the place where stakeholders from across sectors, from industry, from academia, from government, come together to collaborate to think about the development and deployment of responsible AI. So this is like really ingrained in our AI ecosystem, and we have a really strong tradition and culture of working in that way. And most of it comes, you're right, Antoine, from the traditional field of computer science, of open science and collaboration. But we also saw that approach really serve us well in 2018 and 2019, when there was a movement, really a grassroots movement in Montreal to development of the Declaration of Responsible AI. You may have heard about this. So this was like, a Quebec-wide, but very focused within Montreal, citizen engagement and citizen assembly process, whereby participants from all sectors, members of the public, educators, politicians, scientists came together to talk about what are some of those principles that we agree on as members of society are so essential to the development of AI that's going to be trustworthy and responsible and delivering positive benefits. And so that model is recognized really truly around the world as the global gold standard for citizen engagement around AI. And it's something that I would love to see now, especially in the time of large language models, be replicated and expanded and continue across the country.
Denise, the door is wide open. What and beautiful opportunity for CICAN to play a role there.
Absolutely. At the invitation call, I got the message. So for me, when I hear the people on this panel talking, is that I'm hearing that in fact there are some principles right now. There are principles for the development of AI, but what's missing right now is maybe the use of AI, and the use of AI in different sectors, which would be different. There would probably be some common principles, but then there could be different aspects depending on the sectors. So I believe that there's certainly something to be done. And the word that I keep in my mind from what I've heard today is have their say, the voice. So ensuring that we hear about the learners, we hear about the faculty, we also hear about the industry and or the employer, because they are not all industry, they are also NGOs and different types of organizations. Because what's happening, I have statistics that were saying that in 2020, the Harvard Business Review reported that 52% of companies accelerated their AI adoption plans because of the pandemic. 1 year later, 1 year only, not 10, Paul. Okay, I agree with you. Um, 86% said that AI, once considered as fiction, was becoming a mainstream company at their a mainstream technology at their company in 2021. We're now in 2023. So it's how many of them? And my question about that is, or have we adapted our programs accordingly? All our programs that we are offering in our institutions, do we about AI in all of them? And do we teach critical thinking to our students with respect to the use of AI? I'd love to hear on that.
Well, Amanda, it's a good question for you. And Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Things happen so quickly. We're doing our best to be able to provide that education, that guidance for both faculty and students. But it has presented us with an unprecedented opportunity to revisit our courses, our instructional practices, our assessment plans. So really to go back and challenge the status quo about how we have been educating in our post-secondary system for the last number of decades even. And we really have to rethink about the position of the educator relative to the students and relative industry or into their careers. And it gives us an opportunity to think about co-creating that learning space and really embracing the opportunity to work with our students, not necessarily above our students as that expert talking head at the front of the classroom. And asking our students what they think, as we were talking about before, bringing their voice in. What's important? What AI is important for them to learn? What is important for them to be able to develop in terms of their durable and transferable skills relative to not only AI, but other pieces within their career development? And how do we translate that out into the environment or out into the careers? And so we really, that's I guess our pause right there, is we need to take that step back and really have a critical analysis of our courses, of our instructional practices, of our learning spaces, the tools available to our students, both tangible and online, and really think about how we can move post-secondary education into this new world, this new of AI. It's not going in. And so we're not going to be able to beat it. So we have to figure out how to embrace it and how to join it and to bring it to our learning spaces in a way that is relevant and meaningful to our students. And it's going to take some time, absolutely. As you were mentioning, Paul, a little bit earlier, there are faculty who will readily embrace it and to step out and investigate all the different opportunities for it. And then there's also faculty who are going to be apprehensive about it and perhaps not be, I guess, want to say, open or forthcoming in bringing these types of tools into their classrooms. And so it's really providing both faculty and students with those support to say, you know what, we really need to start looking at what we're doing here. Let's help you do that. And let's figure out how we can put you in a space that's comfortable to move forward with even one piece of artificial intelligence in your teaching and learning practice. And interestingly enough, it's already available to our faculty, and they're probably using it when they're not even realizing it. Artificial intelligence is already built into our learning management systems through the use of our intelligent agents. And so there's a lot of faculty and take that one small step that will really help support what they're doing.
So Paul, that's a big challenge, I guess.
Absolutely, and I think it's probably one of the things that's keeping most of us college, institute, and university presidents up at night. And the way I would actually put it, and just a quick sort of area in which we are actually working on it, is that if we add in the work that we're now doing to review all our programs and our courses to ensure that we're reviewing them for truth and reconciliation, EDI, climate action, and now AI, you can have a significant change compared to what faculty and instructors were having to do in just 15, 20 years ago. So I think what we're really all as institutes going to have to do is invest in our faculty and expand the opportunities that we have. For example, in Amanda's area, is that I can anticipate that in the future that we are going to need to have a way in which we are really spending the time and energy to be able to support our instructors, so that when they do go into the classroom, they know how to deal with the classroom across the board. It's not the same classroom of 20 years ago, and yet we're still trying to actually do program reviews, program development in the same model as that we were doing before. So I think we're really going to have to see an investment in our own advancement organizations and how we run our organizations and how we support our faculty so that they can engage with the learners. And one of the things that we're thinking about is why not have, and I love what Amanda was saying, is why not collaborate with the learners so that they're part of that process, because they can probably help us.
Yeah. Listen, we have 4 minutes left. I would like to know, what are you going to watch in the next couple of months in the evolution of artificial intelligence? Elisa, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm watching the evolution and the conversation around AI, both in Canada, and that work is ongoing and it's progressing in Canada, and internationally as well. EU is also making really strong progress, and so I think it's great that these countries are working to legislate AI and regulate AI in their own countries. But I think I'll be looking for those opportunities for collaboration and coordination internationally as well.
Antoine?
Yeah, I'm probably going to look at what the teachers are using the various tools for, kind of everything they're discovering, especially around personalized learning, which is something that my research is based on. And to me, it's been fantastic to see what all the teachers and all the students are doing. Recently, one of my colleagues was saying that she's basically training for a job that doesn't exist yet. And I think a lot of students are starting to feel that way and are starting to kind of build their own learning paths. So it'll be interesting to see what they think the future is going to look like.
Yeah. Amanda?
For me, I think I'm going to be starting to really pay attention to, and as you said, Antoine, what tools are being used, brought into the classroom, into the learning environment. I think part of the other big piece that I'm going to be paying particular attention to right now is around the academic integrity piece. There's a lot of research being done on the impact of artificial intelligence on academic integrity, but also what institutions are doing to develop a positive culture of academic integrity to help embrace artificial intelligence coming into the classroom. So I will be very interested to see what is coming down from the different post-secondary institutions in terms of the development of their resources, and how they are approaching some of the challenges and the opportunities that come with artificial intelligence in teaching and learning.
Paul?
Yeah, interested in all of that. I think the additional piece that I'm very curious about is the other areas in which we're going to see artificial intelligence make its way into. And it's more on the student success, student affairs side of the house. So everything from course advising to career advice, tutoring, mental health, recruitment, retention. I can see a whole other world evolving in that space as well. And so I'm watching for that in addition to
And Denise,
these things in the classroom.
you bet, you bet. Yep.
So, Paul just said, Paul, I would be pleased to share with you the name of some institutions using AI right now to identify students at risks and how early in the semester they are able to do it. And with the success is given already. There were some presentation at our conference that was held a few weeks ago. So for me, what I watch is can support our members with our different offerings on AI. So first of all, I didn't know about this free course that was meant that is available in French and in English. So we'll promote it as well as see how we can integrate AI into leadership development institutes being held this June because it's such an important topic and how we can collaborate together instead of each of us reinventing the wheel. So if you have
Elisa Strong,
ideas for me, write to me.
you bet, you bet. We will, we will. So Elisa, Alton, Paul, and Denise, thank you very much for your collaboration today. It was great talking to you. As always, we invite you to share your perspectives, questions, and comments on today's discussion using the email address appearing on the screen. I invite you to the Perspective Live webpage where you can watch or rewatch all our past episodes. And to stay on top of the latest developments in Canada's college sector, don't forget to ICANN's Made Source section of our website, where you can also subscribe to Perspectives, our free bi-weekly electronic newsletter. So again, thank you to everybody. This concludes the third season of Perspectives Live on behalf of College Institutes Canada. Thank you for joining us this season, and we wish you a happy and healthy summer. This is our last episode. So I would like to say thank you to Yves Tassé, to the member relations and communication teams at CCAN. Same thing for the communication group. They have done a fabulous job in planning, organizing, and promoting a show that you like a lot, I'm told. My name is Normand Latour. It was a pleasure to be your host today, a challenge. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful summer. Take care.